Om Sahanavavatu Sahanau Bhunattu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Akhandamandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Today we are doing the 34th shloka of the 4th chapter, and the theme of today's class is the importance of Sri Guru. If we first review what we have done in the 4th chapter so far, the 4th chapter began with Sri Bhagavan saying that this knowledge that he is teaching is actually not new. He has already spoken this before, and he points to one particular set of people that he taught. Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktamanam Apyayam began with Vivaswan, and then Vivaswan gave it to his son, who then gave it to his son, and so on. Then Sri Bhagavan says it was eventually lost. And so now I have appeared again, he says. So in the course of saying that, Sri Bhagavan reveals his own nature. He says, I am not like the ordinary Jivatmas in this samsara. My birth is not like an ordinary birth. I appear whenever I want by my own free will, and I disappear. And I then spread dharma. That's the purpose for which I come. I want to re-establish dharma, because dharma is something that is beneficial for all the living beings. But over time, dharma deteriorates, because the nature of this samsara is like that. It degrades everything over time. So someone has to come to re-establish. Even though there are saintly people, there are some things that they cannot do, and he himself comes to accomplish those things. Then Sri Bhagavan talks about karma, akarma, vikarma. He takes us into a deeper theory of karma yoga. In chapter 3, the focus was karma yoga. He has introduced karma yoga and spoken about its properties. He speaks about karma yoga again in more detail, and specifically, he points out that the goal of karma yoga is to get jnana. And therefore, that same path is also known as Jnana Yoga. Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga are two names of the same path, because in the initial stages of that path, the focus is on doing all of one's prescribed duties without attachment, with detachment, cultivating a mentality of detachment, offering all the fruits of one's activities to Sri Bhagavan and detaching oneself from them, and doing work to perfection for the sake of doing work, not for the sake of material enjoyment. So eventually, all that leads to purification of one's consciousness and the realization of spiritual knowledge, which is called jnana here. So after that, what happens? The person either decides to continue doing his prescribed duties and remaining in society as an example for others, or sometimes decides to leave normal human society and focus on the Supreme, on Sri Bhagavan, and attain Sri Bhagavan alone, staying alone. Whichever way is all right. That depends on the individual. And that stage is called jnana, or that's the place where he is, detached, completely realized. And because of that, the path gets the name of Jnana Yoga. Subsequently, Sri Bhagavan talks to us about the characteristics of a jnani. What are his wonderful qualities, how he is detached. He has no envy against others. If you recollect, in that session, we talked about the 12 characteristics of a jnani. Then, in the last session, we spoke about the sadhana for karma yoga, on this path of karma yoga, jnana yoga. Yajna. Yajna means literally worship. The simple translation of the word yajna is worship. But worship does not necessarily mean performing a fire sacrifice, or it does not mean waving the arati in front of the deity of Sri Bhagavan. Worship happens in so many ways. So Sri Bhagavan lists various types of yajna. In fact, 10, 12 different types of yajna are listed in these 10 shlokas that we saw last time, from shloka 24 to 33. And then the question naturally arises, how does an aspirant obtain spiritual knowledge? Where does he begin? What should he do to start this process? You said about yajna, you talked about spiritual knowledge, etc. So how does he actually begin the process? Where does he go? So anticipating that kind of a question, Sri Bhagavan says in the 34th shloka, Tat vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshyanti te jnanam jnaninah tattvadarshinaha. Jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. So he is saying here that Tat vidhi, that knowledge, pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya, by offering obeisance, by asking intelligent questions, and by doing seva. And these knowledgeable people to whom you do this, who are already realized, will give you this knowledge. So there are several explanations on this, and I'm today referring to the explanation given by Sri Baladeva Vidyabhushana. So he explains that the word tat here in this verse, tat vidhi, vidhi means know, tat vidhi, know that. Okay, so he says that tat there refers to the Paramatma and not the Jivatma. Know what? Know the Paramatma. Okay, so he distinguishes between the Paramatma and the Jivatma. Says there are actually two different classes of entities. The Paramatma is Sri Bhagavan. It's also known as Brahma, Paramatma, Bhagavan. The three names. The Jivatma is the individual living being like us. We are the Jivatma and we are multifarious, right? We each have a distinct identity. The Paramatma and Jivatma are one in their bhav, in their nature, but not in identity. The Jivatma is always the Jivatma, the Paramatma is the Paramatma. So Sri Baladeva points out that earlier Jivatma Jnana was given. In fact, in the second chapter, Sri Bhagavan begins his discourse to Arjuna with knowledge about the Jivatma. Right? Ashochya ananvashochastvam pragyavadamscha bhashase gatasu nagatasunscha na anushochanti panditaha. Begins with that, and 20 shlokas he speaks describing the Jivatma. And subsequently, there are references to the Jivatma many times in between shlokas from that point till now. And Sri Baladeva is arguing in the commentary to this shloka that he says that all that knowledge, actually, Jivatma Jnana, is the basis for knowing the Paramatma. The Jivatma Jnana is not the end in itself. Knowing that Jivatma is like this, then one should know that there is something called Paramatma. And to know the Paramatma, one approaches the knowledgeable person, the Guru. Tatra pranipato dandavat pranatihi. The word pranipatena is used here. So in fact, in Sanskritam, the word nipata means fall. Nipat means to fall or falling down. Pranipatena, pra is added to emphasize, to add, the extra dimension to it. One should fall down like a rod in front of one's guru. When one goes to a guru, one should not just say, "Hi, how are you?" It doesn't work that way. In our tradition, it is humility that comes first. Right? The guru is not someone just like another character. You pay money to him and he gives you something. That is how a teacher is seen in the Western society, and increasingly now that influences in the Indian society as well. But in our culture, in Samskriti, the guru is, regardless of the subject that the guru is teaching, whichever subject he is teaching, the guru is always a person of respect. So when one goes to the guru, one offers obeisance, pranipatena, like a rod in front of him, falls down like a rod and offers his respect. Then sevaya, through seva. Sevaya is in Tritiya Vibhakti. All of these words are in Tritiya Vibhakti. Pranipatena, pariprashnena, sevaya. Means by doing these things. Seva bhrityavatu tesham paricharya. So one should serve the guru just like one is a humble servant of that guru. Okay, one should not demand from him, I want this, I want that. Instead, one serves the guru and waits for his grace. By his grace, one gets knowledge. So one serves the guru. Paricharya. Paricharya means to find out, to read the guru's mind, not ask him, what do you want? Now tell me next. Let me make a checklist of what kind of things you want. No. One reads the guru's mind. One tries to understand through his actions, through his words. Very often the guru may not himself directly say, do this, do that. And then the disciple will say, but you never told me. Why are you blaming me now? No. The disciple waits for the guru to indicate directly or indirectly that this is how things are to be done. And he observes how the other disciples are serving the guru. And through that, this service happens. Pariprashnaha. So the word, not just prashna, prashna means question, right? But here pariprashna, tat swarupa, tat guna, tat vibhuti vishayako vividaha prashna. So having already said that this knowledge pertains to the Paramatma, not the Jivatma, so one should ask about the Paramatma, but not just a simple question. Okay, tell me, what is the Paramatma? Not like that. One inquires when one gets an opportunity to speak to the Guru and listen to his instructions, explanations. Then one asks deep questions, introspective questions after thinking sufficiently, not just blindly, but thoughtful questions. So ask about the Paramatma's nature, the Paramatma's qualities. Ask about how do we serve him, how do we please him, what will offend him, what he will not like. These kind of questions are asked in a thoughtful manner. Okay, this is called pariprashna. Pariprashna means comprehensively asking questions, but not in a challenging manner, asking it in a thoughtful, intelligent manner to the Guru, in a way that the Guru is also pleased. The Guru feels good that this disciple is now thinking about what I am teaching him. He's not simply blindly asking me questions, but he is thinking, he's understanding, and based on understanding something, he's asking the next question so he can improve his understanding. So the Guru then very happily guides the disciple. And Sri Baladeva points out that even though these jnanis that I have spoken about, that Sri Bhagavan is speaking about, they are actually detached people. They don't need to do this for themselves. There's nothing that they have to gain because they have already realized the Supreme and they are relishing that. They're already content within themselves. They are not teaching as a profession. They are not there to earn money or to gain followers, to build a following. So they don't have any obligation to sit and answer the disciples' question. There's nothing for them in, uh, you know, uh, talking and spending time with the disciple and getting him to do service. And they're not looking for his service at all. They're not dependent on him. So they are completely detached and they are actually indifferent. That doesn't matter to them. But still, because they are kind-hearted, they say that I have got so much benefit from this because I followed this path. By my Guru's blessings, I have reached this place today. So I am, fully obliged. I feel so much that, so many others who are just like me, these jivatmas, they should also get this benefit. So feeling that compassion and kind-heartedness, the jnanis, they are willing to come down to the disciple and say, okay, please, I'll spend time with you. I'll give you time. They go out of their way to give. That is why the disciple should always be grateful to the Guru. Never be, uh, never be offensive. Never be demanding and offensive. Be grateful and act in a way that the Guru is pleased with him. So these are some of the points that Sri Baladeva explains, and this reveals to us the nature of spiritual inquiry. Spiritual inquiry is done with a proper bhav towards one's Guru. Without the Guru, one cannot get spiritual knowledge. The Guru first gives diksha, upadekshanti. So the word diksha is implicitly present in that. Upadekshanti means actually imparts. But diksha means divyam jnanam dadati. And papasya sanshayam. So the realized person, the jnani, he gives diksha, which includes both giving knowledge. Diksha is not merely a process. Actually, there is a ceremony called diksha, but here it doesn't refer to just that ceremony. The ceremony is important, but beyond that, what is important is that connection with the Guru and serving him. The Guru gives that knowledge in the form of shiksha and also removes the disciples, the shishya's pap, the pap mentality, as well as the pap that the shishya has done in the past. That goes away when the disciple does that paricharya, that seva. By doing that seva to Guru, it's not punya that he is getting, it's that removal of pap and sukriti. After that, his spiritual knowledge starts awakening from inside. Okay, so this is the meaning of this shloka. So in the spiritual path, both in the path of karma jnana yoga as well as on the path of bhakti yoga, this importance of the Guru is extremely high. The Guru is the central pivot around which the whole world of the shishya, the sadhaka revolves. So this is an interesting story of Narottam Das and how he became the shishya of Sri Lokanath Goswami. And the story is from the 16th century, 1500 something. So this is associated with Sri Mahaprabhu's Leelas. Sri Lokanath Goswami was a contemporary of Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in this world in the year 1486. That is, you can say 15th century, that towards the end of the 15th century. And he was present. He lived for about 24 years. His first part of his Leela was in Bengal, in the area of Navadvip. And subsequently, in the second 24 years, he went out of Bengal. He went to Jagannath Puri. He spent a good amount of time there. And 6 years of his life, he spent traveling across India. He went to the south. He traveled to all parts of India to pilgrimage, to major pilgrimage spots, and also visited Vrindavan. The trip to Vrindavan that he made, and performed various activities there. So 18 years of his life he spent in Jagannath Puri, attending the Rath Yatra and teaching, spreading his message there. So Sri Lokanath Goswami was his very close companion. At some point of time, they both studied together as disciples of the same Guru, Advaita Acharya. And then subsequently, Lokanath Goswami was so attracted to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said, I want to always be with you. So then Mahaprabhu said, I have a mission for you, and please go to Vrindavan, live there in Vrindavan, and help me to discover these spots where Sri Krishna performed his different leelas. As the understanding goes, after Sri Krishna performed his leelas before Kali Yuga, at the end of Dwapar Yuga, and left this material samsara, left our vision, left away, disappeared from our vision. That's when the Kali Yuga began. And it is said that subsequently, after he left, a lot of damage happened to the places in Vrindavan, Mathura, Vrindavan, the Vraj Bhumi, what is called as the Vraj Bhumi, where Sri Bhagavan had roamed around, the place where he had moved around and performed different activities. Slowly, they started disappearing. They were no longer visible. The forest started growing. So roughly about 100 years after Sri Bhagavan disappeared, his great-grandson by name Vajranabha, he wanted to revive. Okay, so Shri Krishna's son's name is Pradyumna. Pradyumna's son's name Aniruddha. Aniruddha's son is Vajranabha. So Vajranabha did various activities to try to preserve Krishna Leela. He was the first person who attempted to preserve Krishna Leela so that people in the Kali Yuga can relate with that. So he went to Vrindavan, today's place where Vrindavan, the Vraj Bhumi, and tried to, recover those spots and identify this is the place where Krishna performed the Govardhan Leela. This is the place where he killed Aghasura. This is the place where he punished Kaliya. This and this and this. He went around discovering and identifying those spots. But again, after his time, after Vajranabha, in fact, one of the things that Vajranabha also did is he spoke to his grandmother, paternal grandmother, that is the wife of Pradyumna, right? Grandfather is Pradyumna, so his wife of Pradyumna. And he asked her, because you have seen Krishna personally, I have not seen him. I didn't have the fortune of being there. I think Pradyumna, and after that Aniruddha also was there when Krishna was there, right? Krishna, he could also see Krishna. But
what would be years?
So, but Vajranabha could not. When Vajranabha was born, Krishna had already left. So he asked his grandmother that, please, can you describe to me what he looked like, so that I can make Vigraha of Krishna, just like that. So hearing her descriptions, he started making Vigraha. But each time he made one Vigraha, he said that he could not perfectly create what she was describing. So in some of the Vigrahas, the face of Krishna looked exactly like that. In some, the chest. In some, his arms. So, but each of them was very beautiful. Each of those Vigrahas was extremely beautiful. So eventually, he ended up creating 16 Vigrahas of Krishna, all of them quite fairly large in size. And these 16 Vigrahas he established in different places, in Mathura, in Vrindavan, different places he established temples at that point of time, nearly 5,000 years back, and started the worship of Krishna. Subsequently, there were many attacks. In fact, more recently, like about 1,200 years back, the Mughals started attacking India, and one of their objectives was to destroy the temples. So during those initial attacks that happened, and in between also there were various attacks, it is said that as these attacks happened, each of these Vigrahas was taken away by those priests and hidden somewhere. And they were hidden in different places. And some of them have been recovered. I don't know if all the 16 have been recovered, but some of them have been recovered. In fact, probably all the 16, because if you Google today, you will find descriptions of where they are today. But some of those 16 are a part of Chaitanya Sampradaya. In the they were discovered by the saints of Mahaprabhu Sampradaya. And one of them is today in a place called Nathadwara in Rajasthan. It's called Nathadwara, and there's a deity's name is Srinath Ji. Srinath Ji is one of the famous Krishna deities in India. Nathadwara is one of the popular Vaishnava pilgrimage sites in India. So that Leela was performed by Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri, a great saint who was the guru of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Parama Guru of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He discovered this Vigraha. And this is a Leela, the whole story. I'll tell this story in some other class because I have something else to share today. It's a very beautiful story of how he discovered this Vigraha in Rajbhumi, hidden underneath. And then subsequently, the deity of Govindji was discovered by Rupa Goswami, who came slightly afterwards in the early 16th century, was a disciple of Mahaprabhu. And that also happened in a very similar manner, this deity of Govindji. And Rupa Goswami built this deity, built a beautiful temple for this deity in Vrindavan. That's called the Govindji temple. It's there today also. And this temple was built with the help of the Rajasthan kings. In fact, that king Mansingh, Savai Mansingh, or one of the kings, I don't remember his exact name, but he built this, of course, who was at that time, he gave all the sandstone, the red color, the pink color sandstone, which you see in Jaipur. That sandstone was given, and that was brought to Vrindavan. And right in the middle of Vrindavan, this beautiful temple for Govindji was built, Radha Govindji temple. Now, a little after that, a couple of decades after that, a few decades after that, at that time when Rupa Goswami built this temple, I think Akbar was the ruler of the Mughal dynasty, and Akbar was not as aggressive as the other Mughal rulers towards the Hindu kings, to my knowledge. So he didn't bother about what was happening here. He also visited Vrindavan. He saw these things, but he didn't trouble them. Subsequently, Akbar's great-grandson, Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb, as we all know, he was the looter of the looters. He was like the Taliban of that time, right? So he went around, he had determined to, he went to Varanasi and he said, I'll demolish the whole of Varanasi. And today now some reclamation is happening under the current government of some of the damage that he has done. So one of the things he did was he had his, this fort in Agra, which was under them, the Agra fort, and where he eventually imprisoned his own parents. So in this particular place, when he was once spending, the month of Kartik, in the month of Kartik, he was there. And from Agra, Vrindavan is about 40 to 50 kilometers away. And from the Agra fort is a beautiful fort. It's huge. From the top of that palace, he saw in the distance a glowing light somewhere in the horizon, a beautiful glow coming. And he asked his soldiers, what is that glow there in the horizon? Never seen something like it. So they said, that is actually a temple in a place called Vrindavan. There's a place called Vrindavan. There's a temple there which is 7-story. It's the tallest building in this whole region. And this is the Kartik month. And in the Kartik month, they lit diyas. In the Kartik month, all over India, we light diyas, right? To celebrate the Kartik month like that. Diya is lit everywhere. And that whole temple was lit with diyas. It's a very beautiful temple. So he said, is it taller than my palace? He said, yeah, it is the tallest building in this region. It's such a beautiful temple. He said, immediately destroy it. Immediately. So his soldiers went and they destroyed it. They started destroying it. And they could destroy it only to some extent. It was so huge. It was so magnificent. And they removed a lot of those 7 stories. I think five or 6 stories were removed. And still, what is left today, even that is magnificent. It's huge. So you can only imagine how beautiful the original temple must have been. So today that temple, but when this Aurangzeb's army was going towards Vrindavan, the news reached that Aurangzeb is coming here, and he's going to demolish everything. So all the deities which were there, and the deity of Govindji, which was made by Vajranab, this Vajranab deity was removed from Vrindavan immediately, along with a few other deities. The deity of Madan Mohan was also established at that time. a few other deities together were all removed by the priests from those temples and taken to Rajasthan. Rajasthan was ruled by Hindu kings, so they knew that there will be protection there. It was taken there, and the moment it crossed into Rajasthan, that kingdom, there was protection. And now those deities are there. So Govindji, this particular Govindji deity that I'm talking about, was straight taken to the temple in the Jaipur palace. In the middle of Jaipur city today, this is Jaipur palace, a beautiful palace that the Jaipur king was ruling. And he gave it a prominent place. And it's very beautiful, the temple and the deity. And that deity is, the photo of that deity is there on the screen here. This is Govindji of Rupa Goswami and in Jaipur palace. So if you see this deity was carved by Vajranath, the great grandson of Krishna. And it's very beautiful. If you go to Jaipur, you should go to Jaipur once and have darshan of this deity. Along with this deity is also another deity called Gopinath, within about 1.5 kilometers from this temple. You can walk and go. And Radha Gopinath, also from Vrindavan, was established by another saint like Rupa Goswami around the same time. That deity also was taken to Rajasthan, and that also was a Vajranath deity. So among the 16 deities, 2 of them are just within 1 kilometer of each other. Another deity that I have visited, I've seen both of these, and also the third one is in this place, Sakshi Gopal, near Puri, Sakhi Gopal. In Odia, it's pronounced like that. Sakshi Gopal is the original name, right? Sakshi Gopal. It's called Sakshi Gopal. And the Sakshi Gopal story is also very beautiful. It was actually in Vrindavan, this deity of Sakshi Gopal. That's also one of the Vajranath deities. And how the deity went to became a Sakshi for a marriage of a Brahmana and his wife, and walked all the way with the Brahmana from Vrindavan to that place near Puri. Just 20 kilometers before you reach Puri is the Sakshi Gopal temple, and it's also very beautiful. You can believe, actually, when you see the beauty of that deity, you can believe that Vajranath himself must have carved it, hearing from his grandmother's mouth the beauty of Krishna. Right? So all these deities are exceptionally beautiful, and you must visit them sometime. Okay, so we have actually deviated from the point where I wanted to tell the story of how Narottam Das became the Shishya of Lokanath Goswami. So Narottam Das was again during the time of Mahaprabhu. So he was not born in a Brahmana family. Normally, Guru is only from a Brahmana. Only a Brahmana has the adhikar to be a Guru, to give diksha to another person. A person who is not a Brahmana can be a Bhakta, means he can do Bhakti as well as anybody else. For doing Bhakti, there is no Varna. There is no requirement to be of any Varna. But for giving Diksha, the act of giving Diksha and Shiksha is the prerogative of Brahmana. So Narottam Das was not a Brahmana, but he wanted to actually get Diksha. Anybody can get Diksha. You don't have to be a Brahmana to receive Diksha. So he was born to what I know is, I think, a Kayast family, a little lower caste family, as we consider in India. His parents actually were very wealthy. They were like you can say, Ambanis of today, of that time. He was a king, actually. His father was a king in Bengal, one of the local kings. In fact, there's one big king, but under the king, there are smaller kings, right, in local regions. So he was the king of one of the regions within Bengal. I think that comes today in Bangladesh. Bengal at that time, but today in Bangladesh. So he wanted to, so right from the time when he was born as a baby, he had no interest in anything material, although he was very rich. His family was the richest family in the kingdom, but he had no interest at all in anything material. He was completely absorbed in thoughts of God. He used to hear his mother and father used to tell him stories of Bhagavan. They were also very devout people. And he used to listen to them with rapture, and he used to think of the day that he will one day go to Vrindavan and become a saint. He used to always think, I'll be a saint soon, I'll be a saint soon. So he heard about Sri Lokanath Goswami, he heard about his great qualities, who was in Vrindavan at that time, and he said, I want to be his disciple. But interestingly for him, Lokanath Goswami had decided that he will not take any disciple. He will not give Diksha to anybody because he felt that I don't have the adhikar. Even though he was actually very learned, he had studied along with Mahaprabhu, he was considered one of the most learned people among the Vaishnavas at that time. But he himself was so humble in his mentality that he said, I don't have the adhikar to give diksha to anybody. I won't give diksha to anyone. I'll in fact look for opportunities where I can serve others. I only want to do seva. I don't want to receive seva from anybody. Okay, this is the mentality of somebody who is very, very pure in their thinking. They don't want one drop of service from another person. They only want to give service to others. Okay, this is perfection of seva bhav. So he was living in Vrindavan, uh, very austere, extremely austere, living under trees, living as a mendicant, living by madhukari. Madhukari means that you don't cook your own food, you don't go buy vegetables, foods, and so on. You live by begging. And yeah, and begging also is like this, that you go from one place to another place, like a bee goes, madhu. Madhukari is actually the name of a bee, is a word for a bee, right? The bee, what does it do? How does it get its food? It goes from one flower to another flower, and ultimately, when it gets enough, it stops. It goes back to its hive. It takes the flower and honey and goes. So they live by madhukari, these Goswamis, where they go to houses of people who are devout, and then they stand there, wait for some that food to be put in their bowl, and when they get enough for one meal, which is just a little bit, they will stop. They won't ask anymore. They'll go eat that much, and that's it. They go back to their bhajan. Okay, so he was living like that. So Narottam Das went to him and offered pranipatena seva, offered his obeisance and said, I want to live with you. I want to engage seva with you. So please accept me as your shishya. So Lokanath Goswami said, no, I don't have the adhikar for making anybody my shishya. Please go away. There are so many others. He offered some other names, so please go to them. Narottam Das Thakur, he came to be known as Thakur later. So Narottam Das, he said, no, I can't accept this. He went back, but in his mind, he said, no, I won't accept this. So when he spoke to others also said, you don't go to him for diksha because he will not give. Whatever you do, so many others have gone to him, he has refused them. So please don't go back to him. Instead, you go to somebody else. There are so many others also who are having disciples. They're also very highly spiritually advanced people. They will give you diksha. But Narottam was so much attracted to him. His mind was already given to him. So he said, I can't live without serving him. Whether he accepts me, gives me diksha or not, I am going to serve him only. I don't want anybody else. So what he would do, he would say that at least let me do something which will be some form of seva to him, which he won't be in a position to refuse, because he won't know that I'm doing this seva and it won't disturb him. Let me do some seva without disturbing him in a way that he won't know. So therefore my seva is also done and I'll feel contented and he will also not be disturbed in his mind. So what he would do, he would go early in the morning. So these saints, what they do is they begin their bhajan very early in the morning, well before sunrise, in the Brahma Muhurta, or even before the Brahma Muhurta. So they would get up at maybe, what is today, 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:30 in the morning, then complete their ablutions, go to the bathroom, evacuate, and then take a bath and wear clean clothes. And with a fresh and clean mind, they would sit down and do their japa. They would begin their morning japa, their puja. So Lokanath Goswami, what he would do, he would go outside the place where he was staying. He was staying in some small kutir. He would go there into the forest. It was all forest in Vrindavan. He would go into the forest in some place, carrying some lamp, and then he would evacuate and clear himself, clear his bowels, and then he would come back, take his bath somewhere, and start his bhajan. So what Narottam Das would do, he would be waiting there, and he would observe where he is going, where he has done his job, and then after he leaves, he would go there and clean the place. In those days, people used to, what they would do, open evacuation would happen, not exactly open, but they would dig a hole, they would pass the waste in that hole and cover it, and they would go. So Narottam would keep all the mud for washing the hand, and the hand is washed with mud and some water. First with some mud, and then some water is poured, and it's clean. There's no soap. In fact, earth is considered very pure. The purest form of soap is the earth itself. So what Narottam would do, he would go there and he would clean it up further. He would broom the place, clean it up further, and prepare it for the next day. And he would keep some fresh mud there, and he would keep a pot of water there. And next day, when Lokanath Goswami would come there, you would find that, Hari, this place, yesterday only I was here, and now it is looking completely new. And there is a pot of water, and there's mud and everything. What happened? So then he would think that, okay, there are tribals here. Maybe the tribals, they wanted to do something. They know I'm living here, so they probably want to offer some seva. And this happened again and again and again. And so he would wonder, which tribal is this? Which guy is doing this? Maybe he's playing a prank on me. But he would not bother, because anyway he had to go back quickly for his puja. So he would not bother to find out who it is. And as this went on and on, Lokanath Goswami became suspicious. He said that somebody is targeting me now, and they have something in mind, and they're doing this. Let me find out who this guy is, and then I'll tell him to go away. Enough of this. I don't want any more of this seva. So what Lokanath Goswami did, one day, he woke up 1 hour earlier than his normal time, and he went and stood at some distance from this place behind trees without taking any lamp, anything. And he waited. And suddenly he found one guy coming in the dark. And he was cleaning the place. He was putting some mud. So Lokanath Goswami runs to him and he catches him. He says, stop. What are you doing? Who are you? Where are you from? What are you doing? So then this person comes, and he, Narottam Das, he says that, Swami, I am the same person. I met you about a year back. I asked you for Diksha, but you said that you don't give Diksha to anyone. So I accepted that. And I thought that at least some seva I can do to you. And that's why I've done this. So please don't mind. I thought it will not disturb you in any way. So I'm just doing this. So then Lokanath Goswami, he realizes that, there's no way I can send him away. He wants only this. So now if I send him away, it will be probably hurt him. It will hurt him. It'll disappoint him. So out of compassion, he says, okay, I'll give you Diksha. So he gives him Diksha, and he becomes the only disciple of Lokanath Goswami. Lokanath Goswami had no other disciples. Whereas many other acharyas, they had several disciples, they taught them. But he becomes his disciple, and then he also learns from him. And later on, Narottam Das he takes Shiksha from another saint called Jiva Goswami. I'll talk about Jiva Goswami later. Became one of the greatest scholars of this time. So this is the famous story of Narottam Das and Lokanath Goswami, which illustrates the humility with which a Shishya approaches his Guru. And the Shishya, when he goes to the Guru for spiritual knowledge, for jnana, okay, this must not be compared with how a student goes to a Guru today, a teacher today, for any other knowledge, including knowledge of music or knowledge of, or material knowledge like we are learning in our education system. There's no comparison at all. This is spiritual knowledge, Divyam Jnanam, and this requires a kind of humility and attitude which is totally different. Okay, which is there the disciple has to be 100% pure, has no other intention than to serve his Guru and get that knowledge from him. Now, I'll give you another example to say that this humility is not only for spiritual knowledge. In fact, in our Samskriti, in Bharatiya Samskriti, this kind of attitude was there for any knowledge, even for grossly material knowledge. Like the example of Arjuna getting Dhanurvidya from Dronacharya, right? This is material vidya, this is material knowledge. This is knowledge used to protect Kshatriya, learning martial arts to protect the kingdom, to do his duty, to do his karma as a Kshatriya. So we know this, from Mahabharata. This is actually covered in the Adi Parva of the Mahabharata in these 3 chapters, 131, 132, and 137. The glorious mentality of Arjuna, how Arjuna was the perfect Shishya in the mind of Sri Dronacharya. He demonstrated the qualities of a Shishya, the Shishyatva. Shishyatva to perfection. So I'm going to tell you a few anecdotes in this relationship between Arjuna and Dronacharya, and what made Dronacharya so pleased with him, extremely pleased with Arjuna, that he decided to give him everything that he had. Everything that I know, I will share with Arjuna. Right? That mentality he developed probably even more than he had towards his own son, Ashwatthama. Ashwatthama was very dear to him, we know that. But Arjuna was not any less dear than Ashwatthama was. So what actually led to that feeling in Dronacharya? So the story begins with shortly after Dronacharya is appointed by Bhishma as the teacher for the Kauravas and Pandavas. The first thing that Dronacharya, when he assembles them on the very first day, very first meeting they have, Dronacharya speaks to his disciples. He says, "I'm very happy to be your guru, but in my mind there is one desire that I have, and I want my disciples to do that for me. Who among you can commit today to do what I ask you to do? If I ask you to do that, will you do it for me?" So everybody is quiet because they don't know what he is going to ask, right? What if he says, "Go jump in the ocean"? What if he says, "Go and hang yourself"? We don't know what he will say. He may say something absurd, right? But Arjuna, in his mind, doesn't have any doubt. He immediately gets up and goes to his guru and says, "I will do whatever you want." He doesn't wait for his guru to say what that thing is. He says, "Whatever you ask me, I will do." So that pleases Drona very much. No other disciple, none of the others, all the Pandavas and other Kauravas who are assembled there, apart from them, only Arjuna stands up and says this. So the story of Arjuna's pleasing his guru begins with that very first meeting, the very first incident of interaction. Subsequently, various anecdotes. There's an anecdote in which his guru, Dronacharya, because he had naturally being his son Ashwatthama was very dear to him. So he wants Ashwatthama to get some marginal benefit, being his own son. See, after all, this is material vidya, right? So there is also a desire towards family, there is possessiveness. So he wants Ashwatthama to get that benefit. So he, gives the task of filling water in the Kamandalu. So water has to be filled and water has to be brought to the Kamandalu from some place and poured into some vessel, maybe in the Guru's house or somewhere. So he tells all the disciples that please use your Kamandalu and bring water in the Kamandalu and fill it up there. And because the Kamandalu is only of some size, it's a small size pot. Only for Ashwatthama, he gives him a large pot so that in one trip he can fill it up. All the others have to make n trips to fill up, right? So it will take a long time. Ashwatthama's one trip will do the job, which means Ashwatthama will have a lot of time before everybody else completes their homework. So in that time, what Drona used to do was he would give him extra knowledge, which is not given to anybody else. He would try to put him one step ahead. Like you would say, you're training somebody for IIT, then you give a few extra problems, special tips to him alone. And for all the others, you give the same tips, something like that. So he would do that. So after some time, Arjuna was observing this. He came to know that this is happening. So he was wondering why Ashwatthama is given that large pot where all of us are given only the same Kamandalu. He came to know this is the reason Guru Maharaj is doing this. So in his mind, there was a strong desire, I should also get that extra knowledge. So what he did, Arjuna had this thing known as, I think, Varunastra. He had this knowledge of Varunastra by which he could bring water anywhere. So what Arjuna did was, he brought the quantity of water required for his guru using his Varunastra into that Kamandalu and he filled that water. And he completed his homework in the same time that Ashwatthama also completed. So when Ashwatthama would go to his father to get that extra tip, he would also go. And he would request his guru, please give me the same thing that you're giving to him, so I can also learn and benefit. And Dronacharya, seeing that he had done this, was very pleased, was very happy with that. The third story is very, very interesting. It's a little philosophical also, that knowing the seriousness of Arjuna, Dronacharya tells his cook, in fact, they're all living together, right? It's like a Gurukul in the forest. They're all training. They're all under training. It's like a military camp. They're all training. Different kinds of practices are given to them. So Dronacharya tells the cook who's cooking the meals for these warriors that please ensure that the lamp never goes out at night, especially when Arjuna is eating, so that he's able to eat comfortably and get all the nutrition for himself. Ensure the lamp never goes out. One day what happens is they're all eating. Arjuna is also eating. And there's a sudden gust of wind, an unforeseen gust of wind, and the lamp goes out. It's dark. And they're halfway through the meal. So Arjuna continues to eat. And naturally, you can eat in the dark also. There's a plate in front of you and you've been eating for some time, you know where the plate is. where the food is. You can feel the food and you can continue to eat, right? Anybody can. Now, as Arjuna is eating, he has a very striking realization. He says that my hands are able to find the mouth without any light. I'm able to find the food without any light. It is simply because of practice. Because by force of practice, because of habit, the hand knows where the food is and it knows where the mouth is. So my eating is completely undisturbed. It's happening perfectly without any light. Then why is it that when I have to shoot my arrows, I need the presence of light? I should be able to shoot and find the target even without any light. So Arjuna, what he does is when everybody goes to sleep at night, he doesn't go to sleep. He stays up and he doesn't need sleep. He's also known as Gudakesha. In the Bhagavad-Gita itself, Sri Bhagavan addresses him as Gudakesha. Means Gudakaya Isha. Gudaka means sleep. A person who has mastered his sleep. The meaning of the word Gudakesha, that's the name of Arjuna. So he doesn't need to sleep like the others have to sleep. He can control his sleep, or he can overcome his sleep and put it aside, right? So what he does is he stays up the whole night and he practices finding the target without any light. He should be able to figure out where the target is and hit the target, knowing where it is without seeing it. He practices that. So as this happens, one day Dronacharya, he was also sleeping nearby. He hears some sound happening, some tung sound is coming. Wondering where is that sound coming from. So he gets up and goes out and he walks to that place and he sees one lone figure standing there and shooting. And he goes there and finds Arjuna is doing it. He asks Arjuna, what are you doing? He says, Guru Maharaj, I find that I'm lacking the skill. I'm not able to shoot without seeing the target. So I have made up my mind that I want to find the target without looking at it, without presence of light. And I'm practicing to get that. So after seeing that, Dronacharya is completely stunned. He says that I have never imagined I would get a disciple like this. So he embraces him and he says that I'm very, very blessed to have you. And he says, I'll give you a promise that nobody will be better than you. You will be the best. I'll make you the best warrior in this world in your time. Nobody will be able to surpass you. I'll give you that vidya. He's so thrilled with that disciple's commitment and honesty, sincerity to his profession. Right? So subsequently, this leads to the story of Ekalavya. And Ekalavya challenges that. He puts a threat in the way of this promise. Ekalavya comes, we all know the story of Ekalavya. He comes and Dronacharya, he has given the commitment to Arjuna. And Ekalavya comes, he's the son of a tribal. He says that, so Dronacharya politely refuses. He says, no, I'm sorry, I can't teach you. Ekalavya goes back, but he wants that vidya. So he makes a murti. He practices meditating on Dronacharya as the guru. And with his practice, he's able to master it. And we know the story of the dog, the 7 arrows in the mouth of the dog. The Pandavas, they realize that there is somebody very skilled, probably more skilled than us. So Arjuna goes to Dronacharya and says, Guru Maharaj, you promised to me that nobody will be better than me, but that promise now seems to be under threat. Maybe Arjuna does not have the desire to be the best, but even if he doesn't have the desire, he doesn't want his guru's promise to be broken. So he should now be the best to keep his guru's promise intact. So he reports to him. Then they all go, they find Ekalavya, and Dronacharya says that you have to give me that thumb. And he makes sure, and after he gives the thumb, Dronacharya is so happy with Ekalavya. Ekalavya's quality is so good. Ekalavya, without hesitation, gives the thumb. And with that, Dronacharya is so pleased that he says that I will teach you how to find the target without the thumb. So he trains him with the other fingers, other than the thumb, how he can still fight and be a very good warrior. But without the thumb, he cannot be as good as Arjuna. That thumb is required. So Dronacharya achieves both. He manages to teach Ekalavya. Ekalavya is happy with that. He has pleased his guru, the person he considers his guru. He is happy with his guru's blessings. He learns that vidya. And Dronacharya is also happy that Arjuna's promise, the promise to Arjuna, is kept intact. The next story where Arjuna impresses his guru, and this is a very, very beautiful story again, is when after the education is over, now all the training is over and the time for the final exam, the end term exam has come. That's the final exam in the course. And one of the tests in that exam, the exam has many different types of tests. And one of the tests what they do, Dronacharya, he calls a sculptor, and he says, you please make a vulture which looks like a real vulture. Sculpt a vulture which looks like a real vulture with some material, maybe wood or something. And I want to use that for testing my disciples' understanding of Dhanurvidya. So the vulture is made. It looks like a real vulture. It's so well made that you can't make out it's not a real vulture. And it's placed on a tree. They find a tree which is at some distance away, a good distance away, and they place it on top of that tree. Then all the disciples are gathered, and he says, today's test is like this. I'll call you one by one, and I will ask you something. You have to answer my question, and then I'll ask you to do something. You have to do it. Okay. So first he calls Yudhishthira, the head of the Pandavas. And he says, Yudhishthira, stand here. Yes, Guru Maharaj, I'm ready. Says, now look at the tree there. Says, yes. Can you see a vulture sitting on top? Says, yes, I can see the vulture. Okay, now aim your arrow at that vulture and stand here. And don't shoot the arrow until I tell you to shoot the arrow. Says, okay, he takes the pose. He gets into the pose, into the stance of shooting. And he stands with the arrow aimed at the vulture. And now he says, okay, Yudhishthira, you're ready? Yes, sir. Yes, Guru Maharaj, I'm ready. All right. Now tell me, do you see the vulture, the tree, me, and all the others standing here? Yes, Guru Maharaj, I see everything. I see you, the vulture, the disciples, and everything. Okay, now please go away. Yes. Lower your arrow and please go away. So Yudhishthira lowers his arrow and he goes away. Then he calls another person. He repeats the same thing with him. Whatever he made Yudhishthira do, he makes him do all the same things and asks him the same question, and he gets exactly the same answer. Each person who stands there with the stance, when he asks that question, he says, yes, Guru Maharaj, I can see the vulture, I can see the tree, I can see you, I can see all the disciples, everything. And he is also asked to go away. At last, he calls Arjuna. He keeps Arjuna for the last because he has a suspicion that Arjuna will give me a different answer. So he calls him, and Arjuna takes the stance and he asks him that question. Can you see all these things? Arjuna says, no, Guru Maharaj, I can only see the vulture. He says, okay, that's interesting. You can't see anything else? He says, no, I can only see that vulture. Then he says, okay, if that's the case, then describe the whole vulture to me. Describe its wings, describe all its parts and everything. Arjuna says, no, Guru Maharaj, I can't see the whole vulture. You told me to cut the head of the vulture off, and I can see only the head and the neck of the vulture. I can't see anything else. Then Dronacharya says, now shoot the arrow. He shoots, and the head is removed from the vulture's body. He says, this is what I wanted to train my disciples, that when I ask you to focus on something, you focus on that thing only. Don't get distracted by anything else. In fact, this lesson of Dronacharya to Arjuna, and how Arjuna is the only person who qualifies and passes that test. Nobody else passes it. It's a lesson in focus, actually. When we take up some kind of work, doing something, how to be completely undistracted. Nothing matters in this world except that one thing. And Arjuna demonstrates that. Nobody else is able to pass that test. And the last anecdote is where when once they are in a river, they've all gone to bathe somewhere after this whole training is over, after the vulture incident. They're in a river where they're taking bath, and Dronacharya is doing his, that submersion in the river. At that point of time, a big fish attacks Dronacharya and catches his leg. And at that time, Dronacharya, because he is also very strong, he manages to free himself from the fish, but he again wants to test his disciples. So he starts shouting. He says, please save me, please save me. Some fish has attacked me. So immediately, all the disciples, the Kauravas, Pandavas, everyone, they get transfixed. They are not able to respond. They're shocked. Big fish attacking Guru, what to do? They're thinking. Arjuna is not thinking. Instantly he responds. In one instant, the moment he hears his Guru shouting, the fish has attacked me, his arrows have gone and they have found the fish, and the fish has been killed. He instantly understands what his Guru wants and attacks the fish and kills it. And that pleases Dronacharya very much. And finally, the last story we hear about Arjuna's pleasing is In fact, that is the first beginning. He says, there's one thing that I'll ask you to do. Will you do it for me? And that is what he had in mind, right? He has been insulted by Drupada earlier. You know that story where Drupada and Dronacharya, they were actually students together, went studied together. But when Dronacharya goes to him after the education, goes to Drupada, Drupada is a king. And Dronacharya being a Brahmana, he's living a very poor, simple life. Ashwatthama doesn't have milk to drink. His wife tells him that, your friend, your close friend is a big king. Why don't you go and ask him something? At least ask for a cow so we can feed milk to our baby. We're feeding him some rice, ground in water as milk, making it look like milk. Let's feed him proper milk. Please go and ask your friend. So Drona goes. It's not wrong for a Brahmana to go to a Kshatriya king and ask him, please give me something. The Brahmana is living like that. He lives on alms, right? So when Drupada goes to Drupada's kingdom, Drupada, for some reason, he doesn't recognize him. He says, I don't know who you are. I don't know who. So Dronacharya takes that as an insult. He says that you don't recognize me. I am your classmate. We were so close friends. Grew up, we studied together. Don't you know me? So that insult remains in him, and he says, I have to teach him a lesson. Okay? This is actually samsaric bhav. This samsaric bhav, this revenge. In spiritual life, there is nothing called revenge. Right? So this is not spiritual thinking. This is material thinking. Dronacharya is a material guru. He's a samsaric, bhautikvadi. He's a bhautikvadi. He's not a adhyatmavadi. But this is the desire that he had, that I should show Drupada who I am. And now he tells his disciples that please go and take. And again, there in that story, we know how the Pandavas are the ones, and among the Pandavas, Arjuna and Bhima, they are the ones in the front. And Arjuna is the one who defeats Drupada. The Kauravas who go in the front, they get defeated by Drupada's army. They're thrown out, but Arjuna is the one who succeeds in capturing Drupada and brings him back. And then Dronacharya achieves what he wanted. And that later on has implications in the Kurukshetra war and so many other, things. We will not go into all that. But on the whole, my summary of all of this is just that, just like in spiritual knowledge, in our Samskriti, the position of the guru, whether he is giving you adhyatmic vidya or bhautik vidya, whatever vidya he is giving you, the guru's position is always the supreme position. In front of the guru, we are humble. We do what the guru wants us to do. And the guru, to become the guru is not some person who is just anyone who got a job. It's not like that. Today, the guru is like that. Today, you just employ some organization, employs, okay, now you become a teacher, appoint him a professor of this and so. So it's not like that. The guru is a person who becomes guru by virtue of his lakshan, his qualities. His qualities which make somebody a guru. There's a shloka which says that Gunair uttamatam yati nochairasana samstitaha prasada shikharastopi kakaha kim garudayate. A person becomes great, a person becomes guru, or a person becomes a great person, a mahan person, not by simply sitting on a big seat. Okay, you give him a big seat, a big asan, or give him a high title like Mahatma. You just put a Mahatma before his name. It doesn't become a Mahatma just by putting a Mahatma before his name, but by his qualities. Gunaihi uttamatam yati. And the analogy given is just because a crow, there's so many crows, and the crow may think, okay, I will show why I am superior to the others. I'll go top of that building. It's the tallest building. Prasada shikarastopi kaka hakim garudayat. So crow goes and sits on top of that building. And just by sitting on top of the building, the crow does not become Garuda. That it still remains a crow only. So just because a person gets the title of Mahatma, but doesn't have qualities, he doesn't become a Mahatma, he remains like an ordinary person only. So a guru is a person who's got that adhikar of being a guru by virtue of his lakshan. So finally, I'll conclude this with a shloka, a very beautiful shloka from the Bhagavatam, in the Ekadasha Skandha of Bhagavatam, the 17th chapter, right? Saptadasha Adhyaya and the 27th shloka. Acharyam mam vijaniyat na avamanyeta karhichita na martya buddhya suyeta sarva devamayo guruhu. Says Sri Bhagavan is speaking this shloka in the 11th chapter. I think he's speaking to Uddhava. He says that think of the Acharya, the Guru, as me, not as an ordinary person, as me, as myself. And never offend him, never be offensive to him, regardless of what he does to you. right? Doesn't matter what he does, but don't ever offend him. And don't think he's an ordinary mortal. Martya buddhi. Martya buddhi means the thinking that, okay, he's after all a guy like me. It's like I'm going to die, he's also going to die one day. Martya buddhi. And if one thinks of one's guru like that, then naturally one will not have much respect for one's guru. One will think, yeah, he's also going to die. In fact, he will die before me because he's older than me. So this kind of thinking, waiting for the guru to die, is martya buddhi. And never think of one's guru like that. You should always think that, I'm so blessed to be with my guru. How fortunate I am. And if at all he has to leave this world one day, it will be my misfortune. My greatest misfortune will be when, if and when he disappears from my vision one day. Sarva Deva Mayo Guru. The Guru is the summum bonum. He is the cumulative of all the devas. All the devas are the Guru. The Guru comes, he is the everything. We don't have to worship another deva if you worship the Guru. This is the position of the Guru in our Samskriti. Okay, so with this, I will stop for today. And now, I hope that, there were some points for which you want to ask me some questions or give any comments. Om Shanno Mitra Sham Varunaha Shanno Bhavatvaryama Shanna Indro Brihaspati Shanno Vishnurukramaha Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayo Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami Vidam Vadishyami Satyam Vadishyami Tanmam Avatu Tadvaktaram Avatu Avatu Mam Avatu Vaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.